dystopia warning, obviously. In this week's edition of I Can't Believe Westminster's Not on Fire, I'm going to tell you what the Conservative Party have been up to this week. And before people start getting their knickers in a twist about that picture, it's not incitement. I've checked, yeah. It's hope. And despite their best efforts, the Conservative Party haven't taken away my ability to do that yet. Besides which, it's entirely unrealistic, isn't it? Look at it. The Tories would never allow those people on small boats to go up and down the Thames, would they? So I'm going to give you a few examples of what the pure fannies in charge of our country have done this week. But bear in mind that there's a lot, and this is just a few examples, you know, because it's relentless. Let's start off with Brandon Lewis, shall we? A man that looks like Swiss Tony trying to be a badger. Well, he has raked in £250,000 moonlighting at a firm owned by sanctioned Russians, yeah. They say he was moonlighting for the Russians. He's moonlighting for the British government. That's well more money than his salary as an MP. So yeah, Brandon Lewis, former Conservative Party chairman, started working as a senior advisor for Letter One. And he now has 5 paid roles on top of his job as the MP for Great Yarmouth. The company that he's working for were put on the UK sanction list after Russia invaded Ukraine. And the 5 jobs that he's doing, in addition to him apparently working for the people of Great Yarmouth, brings him in 400 grand. You know that I've told you before, this is why they want to be an MP and this is why they're fighting tooth and nail to retain their jobs. This is a prime example. And this is a prime example again of what I'm talking about when I refer to this lot as fake patriots. Because they stand there, don't they? They're knob draped in a Union Jack. They pretend to care about this country, pretend to care about our veterans, whilst desecrating Remembrance Day by inciting the far right. Or, I don't know, working for Russia. Remember this the next time you see one of them wheeled out for a photo opportunity in Ukraine. Because that's what the Conservative Party have been doing through this conflict, taking vast sums of money from Russian-linked donors whilst going over to Zelensky, using the murdered population of Ukraine as human shields to make them look like the daddies. You know, the war daddies, we're looking after you all. When in reality, with the other hand, they are taking money through the back door from the Russians, letting Russians launder their money in Britain. They're all full of shit. But they say all the right things, don't they, to appeal to all those gam-gams who think that in order to love Britain, you've got to, you know, irrationally hate France. France is wicked. We should all be more French. At least they have some self-respect. Brilliant at rioting. Anyway, what else? Yeah, Gavin Williamson. The more I look at Gavin Williamson, the more I think that he's what you'd get if Frank Spencer and Alan Partridge were cousins that fucked. He's been at it too, given a £25,000 bonus by a donor's firm. The firm is owned by Dr. Selva Pankaj, who is a long-time Tory donor whose firms have handed over £500,000 to the Conservative Party. Old Frank Partridge was initially a member of the RTC's board and paid £17,500 a year, but he was promoted in February to a £50,000 role as an advisor for Dr. Pankaj's company, you know, RTC Education Limited. Shortly before Gavin Williamson was paid his bonus in September, Dr. Pankaj paid 40 grand at a fundraising auction for a private dinner with Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, Lord Lamont, Lord Hammond and Sajid Javid, because this is how it works. Do you want to know what else happened? RTC Education Limited made £8 million in profit on a turnover of £42 million in 2021 to 2022. That same year they were handed 330 grand in grant funding from the Office for Students, a body overseen by the Department of Education. Because again, this is how it works. This is why they donate to the Conservative Party. In other news, Steve Barclay, recently made Environment Secretary in Rishi Sunak's cabinet, is found to be married to one of the bosses of Anglian Water, an Environment Secretary with a wife whose company has dumped masses of shit into our rivers and seas. He was moved in Rishi Sunak's reshuffle, you know, which at this point is like just moving the chairs around at Clown College. I'm immersed in politics and I can't even keep up with which minister's doing what. Honestly, trying to, you know, tell you about how many housing ministers or how many health ministers we've had is like reciting the 12 days of Christmas at this point. And finally, Rishi Sunak is going full dictator and trying to bring in emergency legislation to try and overrule a ruling that found that his Rwanda scheme was illegal, like we all said it'd be. But they've wasted £140 million of our money on empty rhetoric just so that they can try to, frankly, give the National Front a boner. Meanwhile, they're going to stop giving life-saving cystic fibrosis drugs, which in many people stops the disease from being a death sentence. They haven't got the money to save the lives of people with a life-limiting condition by providing them medication, but they can find £140 million in the hope to look racist enough so they can win the election. And why do they want to win the election, I wonder? Stuff like this. And please stop coming into my comment section going, oh, it's dumb, it's the same. Just fuck off. It's evidently not. Labour are a sum of their parts, and focusing relentlessly on the opposition lets this lot get away with everything that they're doing. That's my bugbear, not extreme loyalty to the Labour Party. I disagree with lots of what they do. My anger comes from the fact that whilst you're relentlessly focusing on a hypothetical opposition, the reality of what's going on is getting overlooked. You're letting them off the hook. In case you haven't noticed, we've got the BNP in power and they're robbing us and they are profiting massively from their positions of power. If you want to shoe piss and constantly focus on what the people without power are doing, do it on your own time. I'm not interested in hearing about it. Because I've been telling all of you for 3 years precisely how this lot are ruining our country. To say my patience is thin is about as obvious as saying, I don't know, Boris Johnson will shag anything besides Nadine Dorries. Sorry, Nads. There is something you can do about it. Tactical voting. We're deep in pre-election mode right now because people are saying, oh, Sunak's going to try and force a small boat selection. Don't threaten me with a good time. That's my response. Join us. Make them cry in a sports centre on election night. Until next time.